I'm a 28-year-old man, a law school graduate in the US. This is my confession, not about great love, but about how I mistook admiration for a right to closeness and invented a person to be loved in my place. If you're hoping for a happy ending, there isn't one. There's only what happened. Freshman year, winter air on campus, December sun, and a woman in a doorway who became the start of my dependency. I studied at a law school, and we had those mandatory elective courses. In the second semester of my first year, they added economics, the standard course for non-economics majors. But I first saw her a bit earlier, in December, when everyone was taking midterms. I was hunting for the right classroom. A long corridor, shiny linoleum, door plates with numbers, the smell of marker and somebody's cheap coffee. I cracked open a door to ask if this was the room for my law exam, and saw her. She was conducting an oral exam, tapping a pencil in the margin, listening and smiling with one corner of her mouth. The afternoon sun was pouring in, a golden rectangle on her shoulders and hair, slightly curly, loosely gathered so a few strands fell onto her neck. She was stately and composed, in a light sweater, dark skirt, a thin watch on her wrist. Her voice confident and warm with no extra softness. I didn't even know her name then. I just stood there for a second like a man who stepped onto the wrong platform, then backed away, closed the door, asked directions from someone else, forgot her, or so I thought. In the spring, after the second round of exams, they added economics. I missed the first class, down with a fever, eating soup from a plastic bowl and telling myself I wouldn't miss anything big. I made it to the second class and heard the whispering in the hallway. "We've got the new one today, the econ prof. She's so beautiful, talks like she's hosting a show." Someone down the stairs liked her shoes. Someone else was losing it over her smile. I hadn't seen her yet, but I already knew who they meant. We filed into the room, and she arrived almost without a pause. Confident stride, tablet under one arm, a stack of handouts. "Good morning," she said. "I'm Dr. H. Today we'll sort out why people are rational only in theory. Turn to your neighbor and ask how many mugs they have at home. If they answer enough, that's already microeconomics." The room laughed. It was the first time I'd heard someone talk about graphs like a story with a hero, a hook, and a clean ending. Next class, I sat a little closer. By the third, I'd taken a back row seat, not to hide, but because from there you can see the whole room and all of her. The way she wrote on the board, listened, tied her hair with an elastic, looked at the students on their phones. And yes, let me say it plainly, people said everything about her figure, that she was too beautiful to be a professor, about her chest, about how the pencil skirt fit her. Guys whispered in the lower rows, went crazy, argued over whether women like that are married. I listened and got angry at them for reducing her to a body, and at myself for finding it hard to look away. She was beautiful, that's true. But above all, I saw a shape of concentration that made me disappear, she thought, and I felt younger. Approaching her felt impossible, not because students aren't allowed, but because I didn't believe in myself. I was skinny, slouched, non-athletic, the eternal overachiever who has to retake an exam because of a misplaced comma. When class ended and she spoke with students, my hands went cold. I came up with a way out, cowardly but elegant. Right in a way that made me worth listening to and never show my face. I created an email on a domain that looked corporate and invented a profession, psychologist from another city. I picked a simple, forgettable American name. I wrote to the public email listed on her department page. "Hello, I attended your public lecture last fall. It was inspiring. Did you also speak at University X?" She replied the next day, "No, I didn't." "Thank you for the kind words," I wrote. "Where else have you done public courses?" My colleagues and I discuss behavioral topics, unobtrusive. A day later, she answered, dry but not cold, listed cities, linked a couple of papers. The holidays began. Her replies took longer. I kept it brief. "How are your holidays?" "We've got snow here. Rare treat." "Thanks, all quiet." "What do you do between semesters?" Replies came rarely, but they came. My tone was professional, grateful, then gradually almost friendly. 2 months in, I realized I was waiting for one short sentence from her more than for anything from all my classmates combined. I worked as a psychologist. It sounded plausible. Lawyers and psychologists often end up on the same side of ethical questions. I asked odd questions, intentionally everyday things to nudge her into explaining how disciplines make sense of the world. Why can birds sit on a wire but not on two at once? What's the point of contact and risk? If we decide something in one context, why do we loathe ourselves in another? Is that just a cognitive bias? I could see her smile in the words. Birds, because they don't complete the circuit. People, because we love to invent legends about ourselves. In those moments, a small light turned on behind my sternum, like a child's flashlight under a blanket. And yes, hints appeared in our exchanges, on her side. So careful, almost weightless. With your attention to detail, you sound more like a writer. You sound dangerously persuasive. I answered with self-irony. Psychologists have to sound persuasive. Otherwise, no one will invite us for coffee. She, if you're ever in our city, the coffee's on me. I reread that line 40 times, then a 41st, just to be sure I hadn't imagined it. There's one episode I remember frame by frame, a midterm in law. I arrived early, sat in the back row, spread out my printouts, pretended to study case law. I opened her email in another tab and wrote, I reread your article on context-dependent preferences. I can't shake the thought that we punish ourselves for choices made in another life. Do you ever regret your profession? I hit send, dropped my eyes to People V, then looked up at the lectern. Her screen lit up. She glanced at the laptop, read, and for a second, just slightly, smiled. Not at me, at the words. But I, sitting in the shadows with my phone balanced on my knees, took that smile like air. She looked up at the room, her gaze skimming the rows, past my face, above me, through me. Because why would her eyes stop on me? I wasn't the man I claimed to be. A minute later, my phone buzzed. Sometimes I think I'd be a landscape designer. Then I walk into a classroom, and it passes. We're hostages of our best stories. What about you? Ever want to change scripts? I typed my reply and felt myself ripped between joy and shame. A year of correspondence built up like a delicate web, knots of papers, of jokes, of small confessions. I learned that she was 30, married, no kids, hasn't worked out yet, that her mother worked in public service, that her father left when she was 12 and they survived on a paycheck and stubbornness, that her younger sister got pregnant out of wedlock and everyone's fine even though grandma dramatized it for the whole county, that her first time was at 18, waited for a boy from the army, silly romance, no regrets. She didn't write like a friend in a kitchen chat, but like an adult who chooses words carefully. I shared crumbs in return, never big enough to identify me. Raised by grandparents, came home drunk at 14. Older cousins treated me, and granddad hit me with an old lamp cord so hard there's still a stripe on my back, that I often feel I was handed off for upbringing. And that's where my hunger to prove I'm worth listening to comes from. She answered, "That's heavy. But you sound like someone who doesn't hide the truth from himself." And I, a liar, read it and burned. For her birthday, I sent flowers. $300. A huge bouquet, too lush for a professor's office. A neutral card. "Thank you for your lectures and writing. You make the difficult clear." She wrote back, "You're insane." Now my office smells like a perfume store. But it's the prettiest madness of the week. I paced the apartment like I'd won a lawsuit against the universe. And I thought, by what right? Who am I to insert myself into her day with things she never asked for? At some point, she wanted to meet. "I'll be in your city for a symposium. If you're comfortable, coffee in public, 10 minutes. I love meeting people whose emails glow with curiosity. It was natural and safe. A normal request from a normal person. I sat over the keyboard like a defendant before the oath. Then I did what I always did, retreated to the shadows. I'm traveling on business. Such a shame. Another time, definitely. For the first time after clicking send, I felt not relief, but emptiness. She answered, understandable, with a smiley. The correspondence didn't break, but a pause moved in. The unspoken, why? Where an honest man takes off the mask, I did worse. Once she asked outright, I don't need photos or voice notes, but one picture, just to see who I'm talking to. The eyes I swallowed hard water and uploaded someone else's photo. A handsome guy from the internet. Sharp hairline, film hero jaw, warm eyes. I don't like cameras, I wrote, but for you, a one-time exception. An hour later, she replied, I knew you were a cutie. I felt sick. That you belonged to a man who didn't exist. From that spring, our correspondence grew more intimate. We didn't only talk papers and jokes. She complained about pre-conference insomnia. I sent studies on sleep hygiene. I told her half our law school runs on coffee and adrenaline. You're a psychologist. Tell me why we willingly burn ourselves out. She, because immediate rewards beat any memory of the price. Sometimes our lines slid across the edge of flirtation. Don't use that voice of yours in public. I might agree to anything. Me, that's dangerous power. She, good thing you're a benevolent dictator. I reread that and thought, that's it. I'm not getting out of this room. In real life, my life kept moving. Semesters, summer internships, my first offer at a small firm, bar prep. I smiled in corporate photos, played who can read 200 pages faster, argued with friends about the cheapest parking. But evenings were like an orange peel with the pulp removed, empty, fragrant, feeding me only on the smell. I lived off her pings, and one day I didn't get a ping, I got a blow. A message arrived at the corporate address from the university policy office, polite, neutral, asking me to verify identity in connection with repeated communications with a faculty member. If this is a misunderstanding, please contact us. I stared at repeated communications and understood I was seen, not as the man with lovely emails, as a man who crossed lines, even if he did it quietly. I called. I told the truth, that I was an alumnus, that it began with professional interest, that I hid behind a made-up profession, that I would cease all contact, and that I was sorry. They spoke calmly and firmly, without labels, but with clear words. Intent doesn't erase impact. The other party could have felt uneasy, and that matters. I hung up and, for the first time in 3 years, felt not fear, but a shame that didn't want to be bargained with. That same day, I wrote to her, from my real name. Brief, no requests, no, let me explain, no, give me a chance. I understand I crossed boundaries. I'm very sorry. I will cease any contact. I wish you peace and safety. There was no reply. And that was fair. I haven't spoken to her for 5 years. At all. Not a single email, not a single card, not one step in her direction. I deleted that account, deleted the fake photo, don't attend her lectures if I happen to be in the city where she now works. Sometimes, and this is the worst part, I still want to return, not to her but to the role. Create another account, become the psychologist again, send one safe, how are you? Watch a screen light up and look for that small movement of a smile. I know that's addiction. I know that in that fantasy I'm choosing myself over her peace of mind again. And I don't write. I shower. I call a friend. I go for a run, even though I've spent my whole life calling myself not athletic and hiding behind that like a flag. I sit down with my therapist and say the craving out loud until it breathes itself out. You might ask, what about her? She flirted too. Weren't you both? Number. She flirted with an image, with a person she believed was an adult professional from another city. Consent is addressed to someone. I swapped the addressee. I rerouted it to myself. That is a violation, even if you never cross obvious red lines. You don't spy, don't follow, don't stand under windows. Quiet lies are still lies, and a smile produced by them isn't yours. Sometimes I remember that scene in the lecture hall. She reads my email, smiles, and I, in the back row with my phone on my knees, feel victorious. I thought it was a sign. We're connected. Now I understand. That was the moment I should have stood up, walked away, and never returned to the role. And yes, I think about her voice, about how she explains simple things so it feels like someone is pushing the walls of the room farther out. I think, and I don't write, because love without honesty is dependency. Attention without a face is appropriation. Apology without change is noise. My life goes on. I work at a firm on compliance and ethics, the irony I earned. I'm learning to endure no without turning it into a challenge. I go on dates as myself, with my crooked smile and hands that tremble over a cup. Sometimes people leave, sometimes they stay. Sometimes I tell this story, not for drama, but to remind myself of the man I don't want to be again. Because that December stripe of sun on a woman's hair in a stranger's classroom isn't a sign of fate. It's just light. And light promises nothing to anyone. It illuminates and moves on. And I should too.